Hey everyone, it's the Grumpy Meeple, and I am back again with a very late night edition of one of my grumpy rants, where I'm going to be talking about the pricing of Chronicles of Drunagor Age of Darkness and kind of giving my take on where we're at in terms of pricing. Is the pricing reasonable compared to the original campaign? Is it reasonable given what it includes, etc., and so forth? And this is going to be the first video. I think I'm going to do two of these just because I'm very tired and I don't have the bandwidth tonight to do the analysis I want to do on the apocalypse part of the campaign. This is strictly about the original campaign and how it measures up to the game found campaign pricing. Because I've seen this getting discussed. I've seen it in the comments on Game Found. I've seen it on Facebook. Most of the discussion is around the Apocalypse Pledge, and in particular the box with the miniatures in it. But I have seen people kind of generally calling the game out for the cost, and so I just wanted to break down kind of just pure data basically and let you all make your own decisions about, if you agree or not. So let's get started. A couple things to establish right up front. Inflation since 2019, 6.30%. This campaign funded in November 2019. So this is the number that I'm using to account for the inflation since that time. And this is all these numbers, all these stats are all these kind of percentages. It's all based on USD, I'm not smart enough to know how to do this for other currencies. I can barely do it for USD. And, just pointing out, I am not a mathematician. I am not an expert on currency or inflation. I used a bunch of free website tools that I found to calculate this stuff. And so it might be wrong. Double check the numbers yourself, unless somebody wants to make a better video with more kind of details in it. I definitely wouldn't have any problem with that. But this is my take on it anyways. So starting with the Hero Pledge. This was the base pledge from the original Kickstarter campaign. The original cost was $99. In 2021 dollars, that would be $105.21 roughly. That's a percent change of 6.30%, and the change is entirely due to inflation because this you're not buying this year basically. This is just to give you a sense of what would this exact same pledge have cost you 2 years ago, and the answer for this is $105.21. Nothing else interesting here. Includes the Age of Darkness core box and the Spoils of War stretch goal box. And one thing that you're going to see repeated here is kind of the other factors. So for the campaigns that were, for the Kickstarter campaigns, there were a lot of unknowns for backers going into that. I've talked about this repeatedly and maybe ad nauseum, but Creative Game Studios, they did not have a history of putting out these huge dungeon crawl style games with a heavy focus on miniatures. I remember seeing this campaign in 2019 and saying, there's no way in hell I'm backing that. Who the hell are these guys? What makes them think they can build this game and ship it in this time frame for this cost? And so I passed on it back then, and boy, I wish I hadn't, because it cost me like $200 plus. So the gameplay, the component quality, the delivery status, was it going to be delivered on time? Those were all unknowns for the people who backed the original campaign, which means that they were taking on a high level of risk, basically, I would say, by backing it. this happens. People back campaigns and then they don't get their stuff, or they get crap when they were promised gold. So factor that in when we talk about the next pledge, which is the reprint pledge. This is the Game Found pledge, base core box plus stretch goals. Back in 2019, like I said, it would have cost $99. In 2021, it costs $115. That's a 16% change. And feel free to ridicule me if I screwed the math up in here somewhere. I'm sure I did. I got an English. I have a degree in English literature specifically so that I would never have to do math again, basically. And so I am getting out of my kind of, little comfortable box and trying to do this so that I can make my point. But if I screwed some math up, roast me in the comments. I don't care. I have no pride about this stuff. 16% change. 6.30% of that is due to inflation, which means the percent change due to the actual price increase is 9.80, so almost 10%. There are no additional items in this pledge. It's the same as it was back in 2019. It is improved, and that actually is something that I didn't factor into this, and I should. It includes the improved components and the rules changes, etc., that they are making in the update pack. So it is actually a superior product to the product that users got back in 2019. So that's another factor. That's interesting. I totally forgot about that right to this very second. But anyways, it's almost 10% more expensive. The amount of the change is almost $10. And the factors that you have to consider, everything that we talked about up here in terms of unknowns are all knowns now. It's commonly known that the game is good, that the component quality is high, that it delivered on time or close to on time, etc. You also have to factor in the fact that the worldwide pandemic has dramatically kind of impacted the cost of materials, shipping, and so forth. This is a recurring theme that you see across all board game manufacturing, basically, and the world, honestly. I don't have any specific proof of this or numbers on this. Go find it yourself if you want some, but I'm taking it as kind of just commonly known that this stuff is more expensive than it was 2 years ago. And not just because of inflation, because of the pandemic. And it is the improved version of the game with better components, rule clarifications, the storage trays are different, etc. So, in this scenario, the level of risk that the backer is taking on is very low because you already know it's a good game. This pledge especially is, this pledge and even the next one, and really all three of these, it's known that this game is great and that they didn't, it's not full of cheap, crappy components that are going to fall apart or broken garbage rule sets. It's a good game, well delivered. And so you're not taking on risk by doing this for the reprint campaign. I don't think you are, at least. Next up, we've got the AOD plus expansions bundle. This was $169 in 2019. With inflation, it would be about $180 in 2021. And again, the price changes due entirely to inflation. It included Age of Darkness, the Spoils of War stretch goal box, Rise of the Undead Dragon expansion, and Desert of Hellscar expansion. Some of these, depending on when you backed them, might have been cheaper or included more stuff. There was a Black Friday deal. I'm not accounting for that because it's not Black Friday for during this campaign, and so I don't imagine that will happen again. And also, the Handurial Hero Box was free for like, I think it was like an early bird. So I'm not factoring that into these though. So just bear that in mind too. And again, like we said, this was all unknown, and you were taking a big risk backing it back then. So there is no AOD plus expansion bundle for the reprint, but I went ahead and figured out, I just added the Rise of the Undead Dragon and Desert of Hellscar expansion to the Hero Pledge. And so again, that would have cost you $169 in 2019, $185 in 2021, because the Hero Pledge is $115 and the two large expansions are $35 each. So that's a 9.4% change. 6.3% of that is due to inflation, which means that the percent change due to an actual increase in price is only 3.2. And the amount change is only $5, basically $6 if you want to round up. That's a negligible change. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. That is a considerably good deal, even than the Hero Pledge, actually. Like, in terms of pure, like, get what you could have gotten back in 2019, this is actually the best pledge if you're buying the original stuff, because you're barely paying a markup. And you're not taking any of the risk that the people took back then. So keep that in mind. This might be worth looking at. I've talked in multiple videos about how the pricing on Deserts of Hellscar and Rise of the Undead Dragon is just ridiculous to me, especially the Undead Dragon, given its size and the other components that come with it. And so this if you just back it and then add the two big expansions, you're getting a really, really good deal. And you're barely paying for the fact that you got to, let the original backers take all the risk with this thing back in 2019. So bear that in mind. That's a really good deal. That's a really easy recommend. And then you had the all-in AOD pledge from the Kickstarter. Cost $269 in 2019, would cost you $285.88 in 2021. That's the inflation change. We talked about all this. You took a lot of risk back then. In terms of what you were getting the core box, the Spoils of War stretch goal box, Rise of the Undead Dragon, Deserts of Hellscar, both adventure packs, the monster pack, the Darkness dice set, the Create Your Own Dungeons, the Hero Trait 5-player bundle, and the Lord Wrath Hero box. So you were getting all that stuff, and you were taking on, this was the riskiest pledge because it would be the biggest pledge, So back in 2019, this was the big risk. You could mitigate your risk back in 2019 by just backing the Hero Pledge. But if you backed this, then if the game ended up not being good or not being valuable, you were really kind of screwed. As it turns out, this pledge on eBay right now is like $950, if not more. It kind of varies. I've seen it over $1,000. But so you took a risk. You get you got a nice reward for that risk because you got your stuff early and you got to kind of be a part of that first campaign and whatnot. And then they have the all-in Age of Darkness reprint pledge as well. Again, this would have cost $269, although this is a little bit kind of deceptive because this number actually doesn't include some of the stuff that got added on. I may have made a slight mistake here. I don't think it really matters in the grand scheme, but we'll bear that in mind. So in $2021, this would have cost you $312. This is me trying to account for the fact that there's additional items in the new pledge that weren't in the old pledge, basically. So that's a 16% change in price. 6.30% of that is due to inflation, 9.7% due to the price increase. You're getting 2 additional items. It includes everything that it included back in 2019, but it also includes the Handurel Hero Box, which again, you might have gotten back in 2019, but you might not have, depending on when you pledged, so I'm not factoring it into this. Whereas you will get it if you pledge this, no matter when you do during the campaign. And the Foreteller app. And another thing that I'm not adding to any of this is stuff like the 48-hour early bird for this campaign, the upcoming campaign, that includes the coin, to the cool metal coin to use as a tracker for initiative. And if you follow the campaign early, you are going to get that Fallen Sisters miniature as well. So that's not even factored into any of this. And I think it would shift, in some cases, if that stuff is included with the new pledge, that's worth looking at real quick. Let's just verify that. What do you have to pledge to get that stuff? Initiative track marker for free if you back in the first 48 hours. Doesn't say anything about having to back Age of Darkness. It just says back. So I'm going to take them at their word and assume you're going to get this if you back it at all. And then there was... Where'd it go? Did I miss it? The Sisters, Fallen Sisters. For free in every pledge that has the Apocalypse Adventures box. Okay, so this one wouldn't factor into it, but the token would. So bear that in mind too. So, because it includes Handurel and the Foreteller app, you basically take that off of the price increase, and so the value of those, which is $27.99, based off the pricing in the Game Found campaign. And so that leaves you with a $26 change in price due to them just jacking up the price. But, and so, again, all this stuff still applies. You're getting the improved version of the game and whatnot. And so, consistently, you're seeing, this is very consistent, actually. The maximum price increase for backing it 2 years later after the game is already a proven quantity, after CGS has established themselves as competent in this arena and able to deliver a game of this scale, is 9%, basically 10%. That's a pretty reasonable markup, in my opinion. If you consider, like I said, just the improved components alone are worth an extra 10%, as far as I'm concerned. So, again, this isn't the main kind of argument that I've seen. The main argument that I've seen is about the miniatures, the giant miniatures in the Apocalypse standalone miniatures box, and whether those should have been in the core box for Apocalypse Adventures, whether there should have been some other miniatures in there, etc. And I'll try to get into that tomorrow. But if you're just wondering, basically, because this does come up, right? Like, I dealt with this with Storm Sunder, for example. The price of that game didn't change from when you backed it originally and you backed it on the late pledge. But during the campaign, they were giving away all sorts of stuff. You could have gotten their... Let's just look at it real quick. Sorry, guys, bear with me. Yeah. So, the Heirs of Ruin pledge, which is the one I ended up backing, is the same price on Kickstarter as it is on the backer kit. And good for them for doing that. They could have increased that price. But if you pledge it during the campaign, basically, depending on when you pledged it, you would have gotten Feyre the Last Titan, Elise the Lost Princess of Tarpit, and I believe at some point you were getting the art and lore book, potentially. Either that or the graphic novel, I can't recall. One of those two was included. Let's see, I believe it was the graphic novel. One of these two was included during the campaign. So you are getting less value, and you're also still assuming the same amount of risk. In fact, if anything, the risk has gotten worse backing this now because they were supposed to ship this back in April. They didn't ship it back in April. And they didn't ship it in May 2021 either. So this is already late. So if anything, the risk has increased on this because they're behind. So taken in that context, this level of price increase is incredibly reasonable. Now, you're going to see an increase in shipping, probably, for sure. Let's leave the probably out of it. Shipping has just gone up in general across the board for humanity, basically. And I see it manifesting all over the place in the board game industry. So that's unavoidable. And so it will cost more to get this shipped to you than it would have back then. But that's unavoidable, basically. And they've mitigated that as much as humanly possible, basically, by not driving the cost up on this. Which, to be honest, they are in a position to do. This game is highly sought after now. It was not highly sought after during the campaign. It was an unknown, like I said. Now you have people like me who are churning out huge amounts of content evangelizing the game because it's really good. I'm not doing this because I'm getting something out of it or because they just put a video, they just linked my videos and a quote from me on the campaign page. Am I doing this because they did that? No, I'm doing it because I believe that this game is worth evangelizing, basically. And in just the same way that I wouldn't change my opinion or mute my opinion. Like, I'm not censoring myself. Yeah, to be honest, I don't give a shit enough about you people to censor myself. You get it raw, like Wu-Tang Clan will give you. All right, raw will give it to you. I like Wu-Tang, whatever. I'm not censoring myself. Either way, I am not going to kind of couch my words because they put a quote of me up on the channel, on the Game Found, and I was bitching about how they didn't do that, and then they did it. That has nothing to do with it. So I'm not going to downplay the value of this, and I'm not going to upplay it either. I'm not going to overplay it and blow the trumpet on something that's not a good deal. Here's the math, my math at least. It could be wrong because, again, I'm terrible at math. But my math indicates that the price of this has basically barely gone up. And it's 2 years later, and you're getting a game that you know is good, which nobody who backed it originally got. They got a game that they hoped was good, and that's a big difference. So those are my thoughts on the price increase between the Chronicles of Drunagor Age of Darkness Kickstarter campaign from 2019 and the Game Found campaign that is going to be running next week, basically. I will do a follow-up video where I dig into the larger kind of discussion about the value of the Apocalypse expansion and this question of miniatures, should they or should they not be included and so forth. Because I need to do a little more research on that. I need more comparative kind of data from other campaigns. Like games that jump out at me as an obvious comparison point is stuff like Joan of Arc. They had that giant dragon. That was an exclusive thing. Tanaris Adventures had the Dragon Collection. The difference is that in those games, they didn't give you the gameplay with the core box. You had to buy the expansion to get the miniature and the gameplay. In this campaign, the only thing that you're being charged extra for is the blingy miniatures, which to me are roughly the equivalent of, like buying the plastic token upgrade pack for a CMON game or something like that. I mean, CMON is asking $45 for the plastic tokens for um, Marvel United X-Men, and that literally does nothing. I love it, I'm buying it, but it doesn't alter your gameplay really in any way. Not to the extent that the difference between like a standee and an enormous dragon does, and people are gobbling that up. So I don't know, I kind of don't understand the controversy or whatever that's brewing around the pricing. And I think at least for the reprint contents, it's basically unfounded. The only other factor that needs to be kind of added into this that I am not qualified to speak about and will not even attempt to speak about is VAT and what's going on in the EU. I have no idea what's going on there. I've heard some ridiculous arguments about how, like, oh, Americans should increase the price for everyone because we're subsidizing your games because you don't pay sales tax on them, and all sorts of crazy stuff. That to me is like saying, oh, well, okay, Creative Game Studios is headquartered in Billings, Montana, so because of the westward expansion, which was led by American citizens or whatever, that was possible for them to exist. You know what I mean? Like, you're reaching so far on that kind of an argument that I don't think it really holds up. But I'm going to get into all that tomorrow. I'm exhausted tonight, so I got to shut this down. But hope this was interesting. Hope you enjoyed it. Please check my math. I'm horrible at math. This is not my thing. So, and I used a bunch of online tools to calculate all this because I'm too stupid to even know how to calculate percent change myself. I mean, I know how, but I'm not going to do it. So this could be wrong. Some of this could be wrong. If it's wrong, tell me. Like I said, this right here is this was a little tricky just because there's extra stuff in this, in the new pledge, the new reprint pledge, which is another thing. Like, they didn't have to do that at all. Adding, especially the Foreteller app, maybe you could make an argument for Han Durrell because he was available in the first campaign, but the Foreteller app is just a bonus throw-in that didn't exist in 2019, and so to throw it into this essentially the same pledge in 2021 is just like an act of goodwill as far as I'm concerned. So bear all that in mind. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm open to critique. You guys know that I don't care. Like, blast me for being a shill in the comments. I'll laugh right along with you. You know, like, it's fine. And like I said, and I've said this in other videos too, their bias is a thing, and I am biased because I like this game. So factor that in too. But beyond that, I think I'll go ahead and call it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.